All right, Barakatah Yahawah, Barakatah YAHAWASHI, Barakatah Yahawah, Barakatah YAHAWASHI, call hello, Yahawah BaHaSham YAHAWASHI, BaHaSham Akakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to you brothers pushing this word in truth and sincerity. All right, this is an article I found. I haven't read into it. MichaelWelshWriter.com. This is your Europa. All right, so the title of this article is "The Self-Inflicted Collapse of the West." Okay. Now I figure that we can pull some information out of this article, maybe some dates, times, who, what, when, where, and why, and it's all for edification, you know. So this is by Mike on August 18th, 2026. Michael Welsh, that is. All right, this is his analysis. This is a opinion piece. All right, this is just based on an opinion. Okay. It says if you want to see the future, you must first see the past. If you want to read tomorrow headlines, read them here and now. Yeah, that's good. Hey, look, that's based off a statement. Let me go into it. There's a scripture that I wanted to get into. Matter of fact, probably two scriptures. See if I can find the scripture. All right. Here goes a good one. 38 and 22, Sirach. It says, remember my judgment, for thine also shall be so. Yesterday for me, and today for thee. All right. This is Sirach giving us wisdom. He's ancient. He's of the ancients. All right. He had wisdom thousands of years ago. All right. It was yesterday to him, but the same thing that applied yesterday for him applies today for us. Okay. It says, remember my judgment, for thine also shall be so. Yesterday for me, and today for thee. All right. And let me pull up that next scripture. This computer's a little slow. Yeah, this is the book of Job 8, verse 8. It says, for inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers. All right, and that's what we are acquiring of. When we search these scriptures, when we go into the history, all right, we inquire of the former age. Okay, we inquire of the former age, because the former age shows us how this age that we are in now is shaped. Okay, it's shaped by prophecy, it's shaped by the word of the Lord through his servants, the prophets, to declare what would happen in the times that we in now. Okay, so that's why we always go back to the search of the past and the history. All right, that's why I brought those scriptures out. But it says the alliance of self-styled democracies led by the imploding Washington D.C. has already entered a stage of failure, suffering by Russians and Ukrainians during the collapse of the Soviet Union 1985 to 1991. From 1985, the domino effect of 15 Soviet republics opting for independence commenced. The process accelerated from November 1989 when the Berlin Wall crumbled. All right, so this was during the time of the breakup of the Soviet Union. All right, this is what he's referencing. All right, and those Soviet states that were on the Soviet bloc, all right, or they called it the Warsaw Pact. They wanted independence. Okay, and it's like a domino effect. All right. So it says, what Wall Street what Wall Street creates, it can and will destroy. The Washington managed Cold War on the USSR, which was 1948 to 1989, ended in 1991. Vulture capitalists of Western corporations descended to pick the bones of prostrate Russia, as happened to the defeat Reich followed World War II. All right, so the Western corporations, after the fall and collapse of the Soviet Union, all right, they rushed in and they was trying to basically scavenge, all right, like I said, the Western Bloc, those countries that went away from the Soviet Union, and they also tried to encroach into Russia. All right, it says the Russian sold. It says what happened during 1991 to 1999 still scars and embitters the Russian soul. Yeah, the Russians remember this. All right, that's why the Most High said he's going to turn and put hooks into thy jaws. All right, it says the state stopped functioning, jobs, savings, and pensions disappeared overnight. And this is akin a family member or a close relative to what's about to happen to America. All right, like it says, jobs, savings, and pensions disappeared overnight. It says there was massive widespread unemployment. Once well-off Russians sold whatever they had on street markets. The rest starved and endured a hand-to-mouth existence. Families pulled together just to survive. All right, and we're going to see similarities in Babylon. All right, see, this is human nature. All right, even the rich are in this society. All right, the ones that seemeth to be well off and doing good. All right, well, it was a point that their similar counterparts, all right, in Russia, right, was selling all that they had on the street in street markets just to survive. All right, that's the time that we coming into. All right, it says the shops were empty and suicides were commonplace. And in anarchic, anarch, an archaic oligarch ruled banana republic, Russians barely scraped by. The entrails of their nation were scavenged by international oligarchs, few of whom had any connection to Russia. In 1988, the duped by the West, Mikhail Gorbachev invited Western trade deregulations to help better manage the transitioning economy. It says, in effect, the Soviet president opened the chicken coop to the fox. Then from 1999, the new Russian president, Vladimir Putin, drove the Western alliance fox out of the Russian hen house. And so began a very real Cold War. America and the so-called democracies wanted revenge. They wanted another harmless and bankrupt Russia willing to sell resources to West for a song. Yeah, the average American doesn't understand, all right, these Western-backed corporations and how they operate. And they're nothing but mere agents, okay, for the elite international bankers. All right. And this is what, President, Vladimir Putin, he's up against. All right. Through these corporations, Western-backed corporations, the encroachment of the West, the encroachment upon Iran, the encroachment upon these other countries, all right, these developing countries, all right, because they play dirty, all right. Esau plays dirty through his Western-backed corporations, McDonald's, all of these corporations that they export, all right, these military weapons corporations, all right, they play dirty, okay, and they cause chaos and destable they destabilize the earth, All right, and this is what's making these countries and these nations mad. All right, it's time. We're in the time of wrath. Okay, we're in the time that these nations they're gonna rise up. All right, the average American citizen doesn't know. All right, what their government in conjunction with these corporations are doing overseas. The average citizen doesn't know. All right, but Putin remembered, and that's why his stance is the way it is against the West. There could never be an alliance between Russia, the Americas. There could never be peace. This is not it. It's 11. I believe it's 11. Is it 11? Hold on, let me see. Matter of fact, let's get it. Shalaki. It's actually, I'm going to go to, yeah, here it goes right here. This is Revelation 11 and 18, and I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah. In Revelation 11 and 18, it says, "And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, in the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth." Right? But we're in a time where the nations are angry. All right, and now we're in the time we're coming into when the Lord is going to reward the Lord's servants, the prophets, all right, and the saints, and He's going to destroy them which destroy the earth, which are the Edomites. Okay, we're in a time of prophecy. We're in a time of judgment, and that's why the nations are moving the way they are. All right, war is brewing. All right, we are in World War III. All right, but the nations, the major nations, have to get involved, and this thing is going to continue to escalate. Like Jeremiah 51 and 7, it reads, Babylon have been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. This is a special project. America is a special project for the Most High. He saved the best for last. All right. It says that made all the earth drunken. And how did they make the earth drunken? With their philosophies? How were their philosophies? How were their philosophies exported throughout the earth through these corporations? All right, through philanthropy programs. All right, through humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid packages. All right, this is part of how the earth was made drunken, or through war. All right, it says the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. So the Most High used America being the superpower, the sole superpower after the Cold War, the end of the Cold War, 1991. Okay, he put the bear, which is Russia, to sleep. All right, for a season, and America was able to use their markets, use their corporations, use their military to go around the earth and put the people in subjection. All right, and have the nations drink of the wine, which is the democracy. All right, and we're seeing the results of it. In turn, they squandered riches. All right, like the scriptures say, you know, spoiling and destroying, wasting riches, causing wars. See what happened after 9/11. All right, they went into these different countries. Now they're in the country that's changing everything for them, which is Iran. They went into Afghanistan, Iraq. They destabilized Libya. They destabilized Syria, partly destabilized Lebanon, but it's in the process now. All right, Yemen. All right, these countries, Ethiopia, Somalia, in particular. When I'm speaking of Somalia, they've had these different military actions within that region. All right, then you had the Arab summers. Egypt, Tunisia. Okay, so it says Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. So this thing is going to come suddenly. All right. One last thing that they have to do is implement that MOTB. All right, and that's how the fall of Babylon is going to come. It's going to come suddenly out of nowhere. All right, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How it's going to be destroyed by nuclear missiles. It says, how for her, take balm for her pain. If so, it says, if so be, she may be healed. All right, but she's not going to be healed. Okay, let me go back to the article. All right, this is an article. So we're going into the history. It says, and to begin a very real Cold War, America and the so-called democracies wanted revenge. They wanted another harmless and bankrupt Russia willing to sell its resources to the West for a song. Not so fast. On this occasion, Russian patriot Putin holds all the winning cards. The Western alliance, led by Washington, D.C., like a bull with a ring through its nostrils, has overplayed their hand. Backfiring sanctions. All right, backfiring sanctions. Sanctions not only failed, they have spectacular. They have Slovakia. They have spectacularly backfired. Instead of wrecking the Russian economy, they bankrupted Western economies. The West sought to isolate Russia, but Russia and its more friendly neighbors struck back and isolated the West. From Ukraine to Israel, Washington and their Brussels lapdog backed the wrong horse. Right now, in particular, right here you say Brussels. All right, Brussels. Keep that in mind, Brussels. All right, Brussels. Now I'm gonna go to the book of, because I was there earlier in Revelation 17. All right, and I'm gonna do a little search. All right, now this popped up. Okay, now it says Brussels is the de facto unofficial capital of the European Union. It hosts the main administrative, executive, and legislative bodies of the EU, serves as the headquarters for NATO, and acts as a central hub for international diplomacy and continental governance. All right. So that's the significance. All right. It's the headquarters of NATO. All right. And it says the European Union is the de facto capital of the European Union. Now let me ask this question. This is the next thing that I want to ask you, Brussels. All right, so I put Brussels significance to the beast. Now right here it says the beast computer of Brussels. Now this is also in this is in that book called Satan's Angels Exposed. All right, so this is what popped up. This is what popped up. Let me see. This is expert.asu. This is the beast computer of Brussels, an American invention that conquered the world. Now, okay, so this is from a book. This is from a book. So this is a book by J. Eugene Clay. And it says in 1972, the American Pentecostal preacher David Wilkerson produced a 50-minute film, The Rapture, depicting the return of JC, subtly alluding to the apocalyptic mark of the beast. The film featured a dynamic computer called the Beast, located in Brussels. The Beast controlled global commerce by tracking every human on Earth with numbers invisibly, invisibly laser tattooed on the forehead of the back of the hand. Within months of the film release, American evangelical Protestant networks were reporting the existence of the Beast computer as an actual fact and spread the story worldwide. It says by the 1980s, Greek and Russian Orthodox Christian skeptics of European community eagerly integrated the Beast computer into their own eschatology, eschatologies. The legend demonstrate the dynamicism of American evangelical imaginations, which created this flexible symbol of globalization and technology, as well as the power of the global network that disseminated it. All right, so that's from an abstract. This is from the HuffPost. J.E. Clay. I don't want to harp on that too much, but let me go to this real quick. Um, this is the book of Revelation 17 and 12. It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." All right, the European Union. Okay, all of these nations, they function as one. It says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb. All right, so these nations, all right, that are part of the beast, the system of the beast, all right, the European Union, all right, they're going to fight against the Lamb. The Lamb represents Yahawah. All right, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. So the Lamb, Yahawah, is going to beat, all right, those nations. All right, it says, "For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful." That's the Lord's elect. It says, "And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth," all right, "are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." All right, the whore represents America. All right. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. All right, which that's in the process of now. You have this president, tariffs, all right, the economies that backfire, the sanctions that backfired, which are now affecting, which we read in that article, are now affecting these different European economies, all right, which represent the 10 horns, all right. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. All right, so now you're understanding why they're starting to hate the whore, all right, because they're affected, all right, by what the whore is doing to the peoples, the multitude, the nations, the tongues, all right, throughout the four corners of the earth, and mainly because of Amalek, which is the least of the flock, all right, which there's prophecy that Amalek have drawn them out. That's why they're in a situation that they can't get out of. And it's going to cost them either way. They could tuck tail, it's going to cost them. They could keep on pushing forward, it's going to cost them. All right, they could follow Amalek and their plans, their behind the scene plans, which they have a greater plan for a greater Israel project. All right, which still going to cost. Okay, so they're trapped. It says, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So these NATO nations that have those missiles, right? They even going to shoot their missiles on America, on Babylon, on the whore. All right, let's go back to the article real quick. And it says, not so fast, backfiring sanctions. It says, the Western Alliance sought to prevent Russian trade, but it is the West trade which now has to be diverted around the South African Cape, whilst being deprived of the cost-saving, quick delivery Northern Sea route. See? All right, so now trade is affected, these European nations, because of these wars. All right, and it's Washington's fault. They're going to put it on Washington. All right, remember, Washington is the whore. Okay, Washington and the Western Alliance have managed to screw up everything: immigration, crime, public morality, economic castration, healthcare, C-19, everything. The Western Alliance's hybrid war on Putin's Russia resembles a tank wreck on the Donbass Eastern Front. Over half the population have fled their country. 17 million refugees now live in Russia and 7 million to Europe and elsewhere. All right, so not only Washington's foreign policy has destabilized Europe, where you have an influx of refugees coming from these disaster and war-torn countries, right? Oh man, what's going on? All right, so you have that taking place. It says it is estimated that 950,000 Ukrainians have died for a war, the aim of which was to weaken Russia and ready the nation for a coup de grace, right? Bankrupted the West. Today, the arsenals and banks of luck, the luckless West have been emptied into Ukraine, leaving the Western Alliance defenseless. The Western Alliance's Washington sugar daddy can no longer service its 36 trillion debt, which now is 40 trillion. All right. So, in the eyes of these allies, they're looking at Babylon like maybe this alliance is not going to benefit us. All right. Because now they see that you have laid in yourself. Let me get it. Clay, man. Yes, you got so much debt. what are you going to do? And now you're not even taking care of your citizens, so your citizens are discontent. The world sees this. All right, people making TikTok videos and Instagram videos and YouTube videos talking about how life sucks in America, how much debt people are in, people living in their cars. All right, the world sees this. Right? Shit, you spend your time trying to overthrow other governments, and here it is, people. You gonna have people trying to overthrow, people funding different groups in Babylon to overthrow your what you got going on. All right, so this is Habakkuk 2, verse 5. It says, Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. All right, all these military bases that you have, all right, which is not looking so good for these military bases and these military assets that you have overseas. All right, they're very, very vulnerable right now. All right. It says, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is his death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz. You talking about that you want to make that into a United States territory. You want to turn somebody else's backyard into your territory. That's the pride. All right. That's why these nations are taking up a parable against you, and they're taunting you. All right. And it's being done through the spirit. All right. It's being done. These nations basically, they're not down for your shit anymore. All right. It says, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, which woe means destruction. It says, How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So now you're over 40 trillion. You're over 40 trillion. All right. In your bond market, all right, is out there. All right. Bonds is what they use to fund the country. And those bonds, they have to pay back higher yields now, all right, which is going to increase uh, uh, the debt. Basically, how much you have to pay to service the debt. So, man, it's not looking too good for Babylon. All right. That word for thick clay represents debt. That word for clay is abatyat. All right. It says, Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them. You're going to be a spoil. All right. Now, what you had, from 1991 up until now, which has been dwindling. All right. You had the ability to print money. All right. Sell treasury bonds, get funding from these other countries. They bought into your debt. Now they're not buying into your debt. Okay. Verse 8, it says, Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. All right, you got to pay for the blood that was shed, home and abroad. All right, home and abroad. Now let's get back to here real quick. All right, so it says the Western Alliance, Washington Sugar Daddy, can no longer service its 36 trillion debt at the fuel station queues. You will have plenty of time to think how you're going to find 50 for a kilo of potatoes. All right, today EU nations like Bulgaria, Hungary, Slovakia, and Serbia prepare to switch their alliance from Washington and Brussels to Moscow. They are watched with interest by pragmatic nationalists in France and the Netherlands, Spain, and Germany, which is part of the Ten Horns. All right. Some EU regimes have yet to see the writing on the wall. They will. So some of these countries that wanted independence, all right, Hungary, Bulgaria, Slovakia, these countries are going back, right? They're going back to Russia. All right, they're going back to Russia as this war, and there's you being misfortunate to align yourself with Babylon. All right, there's a lot of things happening. You know, I need brothers to understand. There's a lot of things happening as we speak. All right, the prophecies are coming to light every day. You know, things are happening every day, even though it might not look like it. But one day you'll wake up to a sudden shock or a series of shocks. All right, because things are happening. So don't sleep. You know, don't sleep. But I'm gonna end the video here. Call halal Yahawah BaHaSham YAHAWASHI BaHaSham Kakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. And salutations to you brothers pushing this word in truth and sincerity. Until the next video, shalom.